What are the most essential elements of an ideal client profile for financial advisors who deal with individuals and families? Hi, I'm Mark Little. I'm going to cover all the essential elements of what needs to be involved in your ideal client profile, whether you should have one or not. And in the end, I'm going to cover three things that I don't think are covered anywhere else. And so, the critical factors that need to be final checklist once you've completed your ideal client profile. Well, let me start with the basics. Should a retail financial advisor, a financial advisor that deals with the retail public, individuals and families, should you have an ideal client profile? Well, it depends. It depends on whether you have minimum standards. Now, in my case, I deliver what I describe as truly comprehensive financial services. And so in my case, I have quite a few minimum standards. I'll go through some of those here in a minute. But if you have standards, then you will accelerate your client acquisition process if you will sit down and draft a clear and simple ideal client profile. Now, I've provided a link down in the description for you to see a sample ideal client profile. Frankly, it's mine, and you can feel free to borrow ideas off of mine. But if you're curious what a crystal clear ideal client profile looks like, that creates enough clarity that it actually accelerates client acquisition, go look at the sample. So yes, you should have an ideal client profile. Many financial advisors do. So I've been in this business 40 years. I've been working with other financial advisors since 2002. So prior to that, I just built my own business, went about my merry way. In 2002, I was asked to speak at industry conferences, and I started interacting with a lot of other financial advisors. And I would always ask, almost first question, when I'm trying to understand, what is it that a financial advisor is attempting to build in terms of, what is your client service model? What are the deliverables that you provide to your clients? My almost very first question is, do you have an ideal client profile? So the reason I bring it up is because the answer is often yes, because I'll say, let's pull it up or send it to me and let me look at it. And when I look at it, if it exists, it almost always violates some of the rules of what I have found to be the essential elements that really make an ideal client that works. All right, so what are they? Let me walk through what needs to be the case. Now, first of all, I would not put on the title of your page, ideal client profile. I wouldn't do that. What we recommend is that at the top of the page, you say something along the idea of, the client that we serve best meets the following criteria, or the client we serve best have the following traits, or the profile of the client we serve best is below. Okay, so you get the idea. You're not acting mercenary about it. You're not saying, look, I'm very rigid legalistically. I only deal with boom, bitty, boom, bitty, boom. It is true, and that's one of the big mistakes, that your ideal client profile should resonate with people in that as they go through it. If they're a potential ideal client of yours, they should be able to go through your ideal client profile as kind of a checklist, like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. And so you should set up your ideal client profile in bullet points. And each trait of what is a profile item should be a separate bullet. All right. And on each trait, there should be a headline. I do them in all caps, and then a little description that explains the headline. All right. So as you're creating your ideal client profile, these bullets should be all of the traits that need to be in place for it to be a client that you serve best. Now, I recommend that you just think about your top clients right now. Pick your top 3 clients and ask yourself very candidly, what is it about them, or what is it about the chemistry between them and with me that really makes it work? So you think about, of the clients that we actually serve best, what are the traits that seem to be in common with them that really makes the relationship valuable to them? And I'm saying be very candid about it and start off with a draft ideal client profile and list all of the traits. You can go look at the sample, but for me, the client has to be passionate about their goals. Now, that's not true for every advisor, but I'm saying it's kind of a quirk of mine. I've sat in front of lots of people over the years that they don't like goals. They don't think in terms of goals. And when you ask them, what are your goals? They start sounding a little foggy or wishy-washy. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what I am saying is it doesn't work for me. If somebody cannot clearly articulate what they are trying to achieve in terms of their objectives that require money, like financial objectives, if they can't explain it to me in some way, then I can't work with them. I mean, I can work with them, but the relationship has never been good. So I have that as a bullet point for me, that I need to make, I work best with clients who are passionate about their goals. Now, thankfully, that's most people. And so that's one. Another one that I noticed that is just something that upon reflection, as I was thinking about my top clients, it's that they enjoy simplicity. Now, what I'm not saying is that I'm not interested in complicated clients. So remember when I said for each bullet point, you establish what the concept is by putting a headline, and then you can put a sentence or two, in essence, describing what, explaining the headline. So you could, in my case, you put enjoys simplicity, and I put that in all caps. That's the headline. Then how do I explain that? Well, I make it clear that I work best with clients that enjoy having their financial affairs structured in as simple as a way as possible, given the circumstances of their finances. So if I were to explain it out loud to a client, I would actually say it a little bit differently. I would say, I actually enjoy working with complex situations, complicated clients with complicated and interesting problems. What I'm saying is that I like to work with clients that once all the complicated moving parts are identified, I'm going to put in place as simple of a structure as that relevant financial situation will allow for. So it may still be somewhat complicated, but not this complicated. I'm going to structure it so that if there are this many complications in a family's financial affairs, if I can structure it so it's much simpler, maybe still complicated, but it's much, much more streamlined and simpler, I like clients that really love that idea. And some clients, it just seems, I figured out over the years, some clients that is not an important value of theirs. It's almost like they go for the most complex structure. Like, how many of you have ever come across a client who says, well, I'll ask, why do you have retirement accounts in 10 different banks? And they say, because I got them different years. So I ended up in 10 different retirement accounts because I was shopping for the highest yield. And so now I end up with 10 accounts. So if this were an actual client relationship, I would ask them, if I could structure it so that you have your retirement accounts all in one account, and they are in substantially similar things to getting, in essence, as good as return as before, and sometimes even better. Do you like the idea of having all of these retirement accounts in a single account versus the way you've got it now? And what I'm saying is, I like clients that enjoy simplicity, as simple as you can get it, given the complexity of their situation. So I'm saying be candid about all of the traits. Now, I said make a draft, so more on that in a minute. What you're going to do is you're going to put together a draft ideal client profile, and you're going to have somebody else look at it. And I would recommend, let your spouse look at it. If you have people working for you in the firm, have a conversation with them. I take good friends out to lunch. So if I have a colleague or an associate or an acquaintance who's a successful person, affluent person, I'll ask them to lunch and say, would you mind if I asked a business question? And I would slip my draft ideal client profile in front of them, and I would get their reaction to it, and just have them go through it point by point and see if they have any lack of clarity on the way that you've written it, or if there's something that you've put there that gives them a toxic reaction. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be very, very clear about the profile that you're looking for, so much so that if who you're showing it to does not fit the profile, well, maybe they have a toxic reaction only simply because it's not describing them. And you explain to them, no, that's the point of the ideal client profile. For the people that it is a good fit for, they're just checking them off. And when they've gone through the entire list, they go, wow, that's me. But explain that it will also describe who it's not. And that's tip number 2. Tip number 1 is be candid about all the traits that need to be in place for a client relationship to be a really, really good one. And so those are all the traits. But then you need to make sure that there are bounce out factors. Now, this is the biggest problem that I ever see in ideal client profiles. It's that the advisor writes the ideal client profile to encompass everyone. In other words, it'll say, well, I work with, physicians and healthcare professionals, but also business owners and corporate people. So in other words, everyone. No, that's not the way to craft an ideal client profile. If you just work with physicians and healthcare professionals, say that. And if you come across somebody who looks at it and they say, well, unfortunately, I don't fit that profile. I'm a business owner, or, I'm a lawyer or something else other than a physician or a healthcare worker. You need to craft it in a way that you just say, I'm sorry, well, then you don't fit the profile of the client we serve best. Okay, fine. Well, be careful. Now, how do I recommend that you put bounce out factors so that if somebody comes to it and it doesn't fit the profile, it's actually a good thing, that you're actually getting rid of people that you don't want to work with? All right, so I'm recommending 2 things in this bounce out factor, so that when somebody reads it, if they don't fit the profile, they will self-select themselves out. Okay, so the 2 factors that I recommend are, if you deliver more than one client deliverable. So in other words, you're not just a financial advisor that just does investment management, money management, nothing else. Okay, well, you may not even need an ideal client profile, in that you're looking for a certain type of client that does your brand of investment management or is looking for that, and it might encompass everyone. But if you offer more than one deliverable, so in my case, I said that we deliver truly comprehensive financial services. So likewise, if you deliver 2 or more services, maybe investment management and financial planning, or in financial planning, investment management, and estate planning, or you get the idea, 2 or more, or in my case, you actually deliver on comprehensive financial services, however you define that. Well, then I recommend in that case, if you have 2 or more deliverables, make sure to say that one of the factors is I only work with financial delegators. Now, Bill Bachrach, in his famous book, Values-Based Financial Planning, he describes better than I've ever seen it described before the different types of clients. And if you haven't read that book, you should. It's a book that's designed for the retail public. So it's designed for your potential clients to potentially read this book. But in there, he gives a really clear definition in a way that potential clients would understand. And he breaks them out into, he asks the reader of the book to say, which personality type are you? Are you a do-it-yourselfer? Or are you a financial delegator? Or are you a term I think he coined, a financial collaborator? Okay, so what is that? Well, a financial collaborator is someone that goes to an advisor and they want to see a range of options, but they want to make the final decision. So they want to collaborate with the advisor. What's a do-it-yourselfer? Do I need to even describe it? It's someone that doesn't want your help and doesn't want to pay your fees. Okay, so what am I saying to put in as a bounce-out factor? I would say who are financial delegators. So what's the profile of the client we serve best? They're all financial delegators. And I would define that. And just for your information, it's the opposite of a do-it-yourselfer. A do-it-yourselfer would say, why on earth would I pay an advisor to do something that I could do myself? Well, the financial delegator has a very quick response to that. A financial delegator says, why would I do anything myself that I could possibly hire someone else to do, therefore freeing up my time to do things that are more important than money? And this is Bill Bachrach's whole point. We work, the profile of the client we serve best is they're all financial delegators. Someone who appreciates advice and is willing to hire someone to do it, in essence. You can read how I put it below in the sample ideal client profile. But that's a bounce out factor. If you word it carefully and accurately to the way you mean it in your head, then when somebody reads it, they think to themselves, no, I'm more of a do-it-yourselfer. That'll bounce them out, and that's a good thing. Do you really want to be working with do-it-yourselfers or financial collaborators? Well, in my case, no. I want to work with people that value advice, are willing to pay for an advisor, and when I go to the trouble to create a financial strategy across all of their financial affairs, it's not like I want clients coming in there and picking and choosing like it's a cafeteria. Oh, I'll do this and I'll pitch that, and I'm not going to do this, because I don't know about you, but when I create a comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy, it's comprehensive. And if you go eliminating pieces and parts of it, well, then it doesn't glue together and it doesn't create the probability of achieving the financial objectives that the client has shared with me. Okay, so financial delegator is a bounce out factor. What's the other one? You should, in some way, shape, or form, define the minimum account size that you're willing to deal with. Now, you can do this by saying, I work only with clients that have investable assets over $2 million or $3 million or $5 million, whatever your minimum is. You could do it that way. Or you could say, our services only make sense to people willing to pay $36,000 per year for truly comprehensive financial services. And I'm just picking $36,000 out of thin air. It could be whatever your annual fee is. It could be $26,000, or like in my case, $45,000 per year for an ideal client. So you could put the fee amount. So you could put the investable asset amount minimum that you require before you'll work with someone, or you could put the actual fee amount, or you could do like you'll see in the sample the way I did it. our services are so comprehensive, they make sense only for families who have accumulated over $5 million in assets besides their residence. Okay. And the reason I chose that way of establishing and explaining the minimum is because I found with affluent people, they can conjure up that number in their mind pretty accurately without having to go look anything up. And I also have found in my testing of this that if I put the fee amount in there, $45,000, even really great, potentially ideal clients self-select out. It's just, it for some people, that number just sounds too big. Not even knowing that the value we provide exceeds $45,000. So I decided to word my minimum in a way that I thought they could conjure up on their own without having to think too hard. And I added the part not including your residence so that, I don't know about you, but most of my clients do not plan on selling their house at some point in their life and spending the money on goals. So most people have their residence and they plan to continue having it. But anyway, the point is the two bounce out factors I recommend that you do include are financial delegator and an amount of assets below which you will not work with someone. Now, keep in mind, what are we describing here? What kind of client? The ideal client. So, all right. So somebody reads this and they say, I don't have that amount of money accumulated other than outside of my residence. Okay, fine. Well, then they don't fit the ideal client profile. The question is, would you work with them at all? And that's really my final point, that you should, if you accept clients that don't meet the ideal client profile, well, then you should set up a separate profile for non-ideal clients. So, okay, fine. Be true and honest about the ideal client profile. You list all the traits of the client you serve best. You put in a couple of traits of bounce out factors, financial delegator, and we work best with, families who have accumulated more than, I'll pick a hypothetical number that you might choose, but let's say $3 million. So I work with families that have accumulated $3 million, not including their residents. Okay, fine. So that's going to bounce out a couple of people when they read it. Well, that's fine. Now, all I want to know is, of those people that are bounced out, am I still willing to accept them as clients, but maybe not ideal clients? If the answer is yes, then you should take the time to map out a separate non-ideal client profile. Now, on this final point, you need to follow the same basic principles. You need to list the traits of how people opt in and what will bounce them out. But at the top of the page, please do not put non-ideal client profile. You don't want to say that term to a potential client. I would suggest for the non-ideal clients that you name them something else. But in your mind and my mind, when we hear that other name, we think non-ideal client. But I've worked with advisors who call their non-ideal clients signature clients. Okay, that's fine. So the signature client we serve best has the following qualities. And then you list the qualities of the now minimum standard, or you're not going to work with them at all. And that's the question on the table. What is the minimum and what are the traits of someone that you're just not willing to work with at all? So if you tell me, well, I'm at the point in my career, I don't want to accept any clients unless they have $250,000 in investable assets. Okay, well, there you go. There's your minimum standard. Usually for non-ideal clients, and some advisors call them legacy clients. So the legacy client we serve best has the following traits. And you just say, like, I eliminate a lot. Like, do you really care if they're, enjoy simplicity or passionate about their goals? It should be some less strict criteria, but be honest, still be candid, because there still may be some things that you will insist upon. I don't accept non-ideal clients, but if I did, I would still want to have financial delegator on that list. Just me. So be candid about it, but include the bounce out factor as whatever the minimum is. And our signature client or our legacy client services make sense for families who have accumulated at least $250,000 in assets outside of their residence, something like that. So that's really it. Be candid about all the traits. Make sure you've got a very clear bounce out factor. We recommend financial delegator and describing your minimum. And then if you accept clients that don't meet the ideal client profile, we'll just be honest about it. Let's call them a certain class of client. Call them signature clients and say, and you're going to create a second document, a totally separate profile for the non-ideal client. And it's going to look similar to the ideal client profile, but at the top, it's going to say the signature client that we serve best has the following qualities. And you list all of them, including your minimum standard that if it's below a certain amount, it's just not profitable for you to accept them as a client. And so there you go. Most advisors have two profiles. They have the ideal client profile and the non-ideal client profile. And when they're sitting in front of somebody discussing whether it's a good idea to work together or not, I get them to describe their situation. And once I'm clear on their situation, very quickly, it's obvious which profile to share with them. I know in my case, if as they're describing their financial affairs, they have less than $5 million, well, put the ideal client aside, and I'm going to say, it seems like you fit the profile of the signature client that we serve. Would you mind if we just went through it together and see what you think? And then I have them go through it. I have them read it out loud, point by point, and let them self-select into that profile. And look what you've accomplished. At that point, you've got someone who agrees and self-selects that they do meet your profile. And now you can schedule your initial client interview. There you go. So I wish you all the success with the ideal client profile. And if you want to look at the sample, go look at mine and post it on your website. Post it everywhere. Once you have the profile of the ideal client that you serve best, it's all about how many potential ideal clients in your community know you exist and know what you do. And this ideal client profile makes it very well known out in your circles that you run in. Make sure that the people who know you and like you have seen your ideal client profile at some point along the way.